Bleed green. Are you an ultimate Eagles football fan? Well, you're in the right place. This is Birds 365, hosted by the new Mac and Mac, Jody McDonald and John McMullen.
Here we go!
Who collectively have covered and talked about more than 50 plus years of Eagles football. Kick off your day with Birds 365. You'll get debate.
We love to argue.
You'll get the real story from inside the locker room. And you'll hear from some of the great football minds from around the region. You're about to become an Eagles insider. Get in the game. Join Jody Mack and Johnny Mack and join the football community that flocks to Birds 365. Birds 365 starts right now.
Welcome to the NFL. Let's go! Let's go! Go!
And a good non-walkthrough Wednesday morning, Birds fans. Appreciate you streaming in here on Birds 365. You got Mac and Mac. That would be John McMullen and Jody McDonald. Good to see we've got the comments back on our StreamYard feed today. Looking forward to hearing from some of you diehard Birds fans, some of you knuckleheads who check in too, and a little off the wall. I at least like to see where you're going to go on a day in, day out basis. We had StreamYard issue
off the wall. Yeah.
Couple guys are a little off the wall, but I like that. Appreciate their offbeat outlook.
As long as they like it, like the show. I don't care.
Right. Yeah, you can write whatever the hell you want and take pot shots at me or John or anybody else or any of the Eagles or coaches or players or whatever else. But make sure you like the show. That's a key. You got to at least give us our props, even if you vehemently disagree with something we say. And we'll do it again for the next 3 hours here on Birds 365. All right, Johnny Mac. Coordinator talk is the main topic around the Eagles these days, understandably so, because they got two major vacancies to fill with Jonathan Gannon and Shane Steichen both going out the door. And we found out yesterday they had already interviewed a couple more candidates. Chris Shula from the Rams and Jesse Minter from the University of Michigan, their defensive coordinator. So they've interviewed three. They've got two more at a minimum that are coming in from the outside to interview, including Vance Joseph today being virtually interviewed. And we talked about that plenty yesterday.
By the way, that already started. That started yesterday. So they were a day behind. So evidently, Vance met with Nick Sirianni yesterday. Today is going to be Jeffrey Lurie, Howie Roseman. So the original report was Wednesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
So now it's Tuesday, Wednesday. So
okay. So they're in that process already, and they haven't met as far as the reports go. You tell me different again if I got wrong. Deshaun Desai, someone they want to interview and want to talk with. Don't know if they've accomplished that just yet. Here's my first question of the day for you, John. When both Sirianni and Gannon walked out the door to become head coaches, two immediate guys from the staff rose up the charts to become the top internal candidate, one on offense, one on defense. They've already talked to at least four guys on the defensive side, probably a fifth. Who knows? Even more. You don't know when they would like to get a hire done before the combine, which is the end of next week. So there's a quasi timetable on it. And as far as you've reported or any of your other good Eagle beat guys, they've interviewed exactly zero external candidates for the offensive coordinator position. If you're Denard Wilson, are you like, get up in the morning and shrug and go, what the hell did I do wrong? Why did I have to bring in all these guys for a defensive coordinator position when they're just kind of twiddling their thumbs on the offensive side, getting ready to hand the job to somebody on the staff?
Yeah.
What's Denard Wilson saying to himself these days?
Probably same thing you're saying. Probably, aware that he's not sort of as locked in as Brian Johnson is as on the offensive side. I mean, there's not many other ways you can take it. I know a lot, the immediate and as I said, I don't necessarily disagree with it, is the interpretation that, not being sure on the internal candidate, which would in this case be Denard Wilson, they'll tell you got to take advantage of this situation to pick people's brains. And, it's a rare opportunity to hear about schematic theories and all that. Well, why aren't you doing that for the offense?
Exactly.
And maybe
you can't tell that line of thinking
Yeah.
if you're only doing it on one of the two sides of the ball when you have openings on both sides.
Yeah. So, I mean, if you're asking, and all this is opinion and speculation, obviously, because as I mentioned earlier in the week, this is sort of the last bastion, the unknown sort of in the NFL world. And you don't know how guys are thinking really. And in this case, it's Jeffrey and Howie and Nick. It's pretty clear. And the first indication was they were willing to pay Jonathan Gannon, head coaching money to come back. That tells me more than anything else that they were not sure of Denard Wilson or anybody else, whether it was Nick Rollis, and Nick is gone now. They weren't as concrete with those guys as Brian Johnson or even Kevin Patullo on the offensive side. That's what it tells me. And more than the interviews that because remember, that's coming off the Super Bowl where everybody's jumping off buildings and setting their hair on fire, and that's the worst defensive coordinator in the history of the world, and blah blah blah. And Jeffrey Lurie says, "Hey, I'll pay you to stay." Essentially as much as the Cardinals. I think that tells you all you need to know, to be honest.
I know where you go with that. And pardon me if I'm the glass half empty guy. Again, if you're Shane Steichen, how do you feel? Both are up for coaching positions, head coaching positions elsewhere, interviewed for the spot. Again, Steichen ahead of the curve because he interviewed for the first time prior to the Super Bowl even being played. Gannon waited till after the Super Bowl for his first and I guess winning interview with the Cardinals because he got the gig shortly thereafter. Does Shane Steichen say to himself, wait a minute, why didn't you offer to pay me head coach money to stick around and stay as the offensive coordinator? You went to pretty good lengths to at least try and keep John. It was like, wave to me as I go out the door. Shane, good job. See you later. Good luck, bud.
No.
Glad we're not paying you.
I think from Shane's perspective, he's got bigger issues to worry about, number one. But number two, offensive versus defensive coach. The head coach is an offensive guy. So, I mean, it's his offense. It's his scheme. It's, Shane Steichen's doing what Nick wants. And as much as Nick gets involved, and he gets involved more than most coaches in, the defensive side, he'll admit that's not his expertise. That was Jonathan Gannon's fiefdom. That's how it works. I mean, when Doug was here, Jim Schwartz, hey, check in every once in a while and do what you need to do on the defensive side. So when you have an offensive head coach, the other side's more important, and vice versa. If you had a defensive head coach, the offensive guy would be more important. That's sort of baked into the whole thing. So, the Eagles have proven, during the Jeffrey Lurie era, his first hire was a defensive guy, but ever since then, he's kind of readjusted himself and realigned himself and realized, the best way to win the modern NFL, and he's not wrong. You got to worry about the offense first and foremost. And I said back in the day, I say it all the time. Back in the day, good defense could beat good offense. Now it's the exact opposite. Good offense beats good defense. We saw it in the Super Bowl. And to be honest, I don't think the fan base is caught up to that mentality. But whether it's Kansas City giving up, 40 points or the Eagles getting smoked in the second half, San Francisco getting smoked here. Good offense beats good defense now. So yeah, I agree with Jeff Lurie's mentality. And when you have an offensive setup as a head coach, the defensive coordinator is more important.
Understood, because you're right. Sirianni is the guy who, even if he's not calling plays, it's his offense. The one thing you said, and we've had a couple other guys there, I think, on the show, at least one. I think I'm on an island by myself on this one. I actually think that Shane Steichen's in a better position than Jonathan Gannon. I think the Colts right now, where they fit, NFL, I think they're in a better position. And I know the Colts are going to be going with a rookie quarterback, and the Cardinals are going with an established quarterback. But an established quarterback who's going to start the year hurt and is already making top flight money, whereas you're going to be, if you're Shane Steichen, you're going to be able to step into the same exact position you are here in Philadelphia, a young quarterback on a rookie deal. Now, we got no idea if either Young or Stroud are going to be the level of Jalen Hurts, but I think I'd prefer to take my shot with that, roll my dice with that, than with Kyler already getting paid, usually gets hurt, is hurt, and he's a little bit of a flake. Kyler Murray running my team. Plus, I think the Colts have some better defensive players already in place. So I actually think that Steichen's in a better spot than Gannon is right now.
Yeah, I mean, you can make the argument, especially if you get the quarterback right. But we got to know if you get the quarterback right. If you get the right quarterback, you're 100% right. But even then, and I look at Trevor Lawrence, there's that, already I'm 10 minutes in the show. I got two JAKIB Sports references. Startup costs. Like, you're not getting a better prospect than Trevor Lawrence, and you still have startup costs with Trevor. Now I think he's headed in a great direction. Took a big step forward, but even last year as a playoff team, he struggled at times. All young quarterbacks struggle at times. So you have those startup costs. How quickly, that's the amazing thing about Jalen Hurts. Forget about first round versus second round. Even his first year as a starter, which he was pretty good. I mean, Pro Bowl alternate, certainly not terrible. I know a lot of people criticized him, but it was pretty solid. His first year as a starter, and then he took the big leap. A lot of that has to do with the offensive line, the skill position, all that kind of stuff, the coaching, Jalen's work ethic. Point is, man, and from both their situations, look, you got wacky owners. I mean, that doesn't help.
Right.
They go from Jeffrey Lurie.
I don't think either one of them are in good spot as far as ownership goes, but I don't know what I would rate one wackier than the other.
Yeah, exactly. So they're from that standpoint, they're not going to get as much help as they got here as coordinators. A lot of things come into it, but I understand what you're saying in the quarterback. If you get the quarterback right, and if he starts playing well on his rookie deal, you have that little window. But as you mentioned, and you were right yesterday on the show, Patrick Mahomes, Matthew Stafford, Tom Brady, make a lot of money, make a lot of money, make a lot of money. It's as much as it hurts to think about it in this time of the year when the Eagles are going to sign Jalen Hurts to an extension, whatever it is, and you're going to go, there's going to be a bunch of hand wringing, and I don't know why, because it's not anybody's. It's not my money. It's not your money. It's not the fans' money. Let Jeffrey worry about that. He's going to pay him. It's better to have the established guy than the cross your fingers guy. And I think that's what Jonathan Gannon said, basically. He loves Philadelphia. His wife's from Philadelphia, for those who don't know. She's a Temple gal, all that kind of stuff. It's one of the reasons he came here in the first place. Even though he got all the criticism, she loved it here. She wanted to be here. And that's always a big thing. I think people don't put real life circumstances into these things, and especially in such a nomadic profession. But so his wife was very happy being here. All things being equal, if he had the fifth pick in the draft versus whatever was India, fourth, whatever it is, fourth or fifth, fourth versus an established quarterback, maybe he thinks about it more. I don't know. Maybe he says, you know what, I'll stay here and get paid like a head coach because I don't have a quarterback. I always prefer certainty rather than uncertainty. And you can say what you want about Kyler Murray. You're ignoring his first 3 seasons if you just focus on last season, because he was pretty stinking good. Now, I'm concerned, like everybody else, when you got to put in clauses to his contract about studying and all that kind of stuff. But the skill set, it's pretty good.
And yeah, I would say pretty good. Not top level, and he's already being paid top level. And that is one of the unfortunate realities of the NFL. You're right about, I don't care about Bidwell's money or Urtsay's money or Jeff Florey's money. That's their money. It's not my money, so I can get past that really quickly. But it's a cap world in which you live. You do have to be able to pay a quarterback and then field a very good team at all your other positions. Eagles are lucky to have a good guy who does a great job with the cap, like Howie Roseman, brand new general manager out there in Arizona, who we have no idea how good he will be at balancing a cap. So that is to be determined. I made the point yesterday about the last 3 Super Bowl winners being quote unquote veteran quarterbacks making top of the money. More so to argue against those who say the trend in the NFL will be take your quarterback, keep him 5 years, and then turn it over. Get your next rookie quarterback. Don't even bother.
Not realistic. I say that. I think about it, Jody. It's not realistic, though.
It is.
It's not realistic, because even if you hit once, you're not going to hit it again and again and again and again. We see, we see the development of quarterbacks, and I call it the college mentality. Just reload, and you're able to build up around them better. You are able to build up around them better. But if the quarterback can't play, the quarterback can't play. I mean, and the thing, to use Jalen Hurts as an example, we're going to draft the next Jalen Hurts. Well, good luck with that. Good luck with that. And you see the quarterbacks drafted in front of them. You see all the quarterbacks, part of it is organization again, part of it is coaching, part of it is his own work ethic and all that kind of stuff. You can't duplicate that. You can't replicate that. And that's why you're going to pay him $48-50 million average annual value. Can't do it.
You can have it in theory, in philosophy. It's a potential way to go that makes sense. But then you actually have to pick the guys that have to become as good a player as the one you're letting walk out the door. Good luck. That doesn't happen. Maybe once every blue moon in the NFL. It isn't going to be just standard operating procedure. So that's why I made that point yesterday about the veteran guys. All right, one quick note before we get Mike Gill up, our buddy from down the shore, 97.3, the Sports Bash, ESPN Radio, is going to jump in with us. Right here on the JAKIB Media YouTube channel yesterday, there was another hat thrown into the ring for Eagles defensive coordinator. Our very own Seth Joyner said, if chosen, I will serve. Ready to become the defensive coordinator of the Philadelphia Eagles. He said it on the National Football Show with Dan Sileo. You don't think there's any chance of that happening, do you, Johnny May?
No, I don't. And I love Seth, and I'm on with Seth all the time on the post-game show, the pre-game show. No, I don't, I don't want to. It's one of those things where, Seth has been out of the game a long time. He hasn't gotten into the coaching ranks. It's sort of like Mike Schmidt in baseball back in the day, where he wanted to become the Phillies manager. And I've talked about it and with Josh McCown, and I do think there's sort of a closed-mindedness to, when Josh was in the mix to be Houston's head coach, everyone would say, he's got no experience. He's got no experience. I'm like, well, except the 20 years he played in every offensive scheme under the sun, and everybody talks about how smart he is. And now after that, he's finally gone into coaching, and he'll probably be a head coach in a couple of years because he's finally stuck his toe in the pool. And now people can't throw that at sort of ownership that don't show the courage of their own convictions. But, Seth's been out of it a long time, and he hasn't gotten into it. And no, they're not going to consider something like that. And the second thing, I love Seth, but it's a different game. It's a different game. And he said on the show, and I saw the clip, it's not as different as people think it is. It's really different, actually. It's different to the point that I don't like it. Seth and I are on the same page. I don't like it, to be honest. But it's the reality, and it's not changing because of the safety rules, The offense, they want to amplify. They make things easier. It is a completely different game. I can't say that enough from when Seth played. And if you're going to show up and, do Jim Johnson things, well, you're going to be in trouble. B, from a standpoint of you're going to get a lot of flags, number one. And, even from the way the game has evolved, from a schematic standpoint, you're going to be in a lot of trouble when you're facing certain quarterbacks who know how to handle the blitz. So.
And shoot, I brought up Seth names before Birds 365 ever started, the last however many years on WIP, wondering if Seth had any interest in becoming a coach. Your Mike Schmidt reference, I think, is on point. The coordinator position is a pretty big job. Shoot, the Eagles just offered Jonathan Gannon head coaching money to stick around and be their defensive coordinator. So that's something you don't just step in and
Tone chimed in and said he would come in as the linebackers coach to make it more realistic. He could probably teach people how to play linebacker, in that more because that's about technique and fundamentals and, but I think he's been out of it too long for anyone to say, we're going to make him a position coach. But that's it. And the other part is, Jody, and God bless Seth because, he does a great job on all the platforms. He's too vocal about it. They don't want that. They don't want those waves.
Agreed. And the other thing, and I'm not just talking about the Eagles here. I'm talking about the NFL. This is a very broad brush stroke statement. So if you got to hit me up, not there, yeah, but not here. I'm not saying every situation, every single team, just in general. The linebacker is almost becoming an extinct animal in the National Football League.
That hurts too.
Certainly the way Seth played it, it's not played like that in the NFL anymore. It's just not. And not here in Philadelphia, not across the National Football League. And I know Nick Rallis just got the defense coordinator position in Arizona, so Jonathan Gannon at least appreciates the personality. I don't know that the linebacker coach is a stepping stone position to become a defensive coordinator because linebackers are becoming damn well extinct around the National Football League.
If Seth walked into the locker room tomorrow and saw Nakobe Dean, I think he'd say, "You're a linebacker?" Because you're not a big guy. It's a completely different game.
He's John McMullen. I'm Jody McDonald. We are Mac and Mac here on Birds 365. Plenty of bird conversation. You're coming way. We need a third voice. We've got a good one at that to join us. Our pal Mike Gill from down the shore on 97.3 ESPN, the Sports Bash, jumping in his usual Wednesday spot here with us on Birds 365.
Philadelphia fans were cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go for the beers, Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
My name is Fran Salerno. I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Appreciate you joining us here on Birch 365, a non-walkthrough Wednesday. No walkthroughs for months and months and months and months, and somehow we'll get through it with help from guys like Mike Gill, who's good enough to hop on board with us today. In case you didn't see it, he's got a Yale t-shirt on, which he must have got at a garage sale somewhere because he didn't get it at the student store. I can guarantee you that, like me wearing a Harvard shirt. Yeah, just not happening. Mr. Gill, we haven't talked to you since the Super Bowl. How big a letdown was that for you? A guy who said, well, the Eagles are the better team prior to the game being played. Didn't quite work out that way on that Sunday.
No, and I did get it at the student store. I happened to just walk the campus.
I thought it was an honorary degree. I thought that.
I have a T-shirt from every campus I've ever visited. So I
really?
There we go.
Yeah, I've got all I must have 25 different shirts that say some college on it. People, did you go there? I visited it once. I actually visited Yale twice. I've been there twice. You got to go to New Haven to get the pizza, man. The pizza.
Oh, I've had New Haven. I'm an ESPN guy, so I've had New Haven pizza.
Yeah.
I was extremely disappointed, Jody. I mean, I thought the Eagles were clearly the better team. I think we actually kind of saw that they probably were the better team. In the first half, they kind of dominated that game. And what happened? They did something they hadn't done all year. They turned the ball over. That turnover was just deflating. And I thought it really was the play that changed that game. I don't know if you guys, Sipos was on the radio in Australia yesterday.
Yeah, we saw
punt. That punt, I thought, was another huge, everybody is focused on Gannon and the defense. I could come up with like 6 things that happened before I'm pissed off about the defense in that game. I just thought the Eagles were the better team. And the fact that they are walking around today, the second best team, still a week later, a week and a half later, I'm looking around saying, how did that happen? How did they lose that game?
Let me push back a little bit on the Jalen fumble, because I've gotten into social media back and forth with people because I said on my Twitter that Patrick Mahomes is the man in the NFL, but he was the second best quarterback on the field on Super Bowl Sunday. The Eagles scored 10 points immediately after Jalen Hurts put the ball on the ground, and we're up by 10 points going into
I
the
agree
half.
with that. When that game was at halftime, Mike, and fumble and all, I think people look at the final score and say, they go back, revisionists, and say, fumble, fumble, fumble. If they didn't fumble, they win the game. They handled that very well to the point at halftime. I thought they were winning the game. I said, well, they're the better team. Kansas City's in trouble.
Yeah,
that's what I thought at halftime.
I agree with what you're saying. They answered the bell, but if they go down and score there and they're up 24-7 at half instead of it being a 10,
then
game,
the game's over.
The game is really and Kansas City had to be perfect in the second half. That's what the defense is predicated on. We talk about it a lot. The defense is you're not going to go on 10 play, 12 play, 9 play drives multiple times in one game. If you do, It's because you were perfect, meaning we didn't get a sack. We didn't get a fumble. We didn't get an interception. You didn't go off sides. There wasn't some sort of penalty to stall your drive. They had no penalties, no sack, no fumble, no interception. They had three drives of 9 plays or more. So if you're up 24-7, you would think that's another possession they have to be perfect on.
Doesn't that make the Kansas City Chiefs the better team? If they were perfect, doesn't that make them the better team?
On that day, Jody, yes, I'm not going to push back. On that day, if those two teams play 10 times, I think Philadelphia probably wins 7. But I hate to bring this up, but everybody seems to be finding ways to kind of bring it back. Sipos brought it up. I don't know, TJ Edwards was on the radio the other day. He brought it up. The Eagles are handling this with class, and they are saying all the right things. But now that we're getting further and further away and the players are getting more chances to talk about this, that field was an abomination, a disgrace. And let's put it this way. If Dallas played whoever in the Super Bowl, we should all be complaining about that field, and the league should have to speak about what the hell happened, that field was in such a disgrace of a condition that it's still being brought up. I mean, TJ Edwards called it up the other night. He said the field was hard. I mean, it was tough for both. He wanted to say how bad that field was, but it was almost like his subconscious took over.
Well, because, and it should, and from this perspective, Mike, look, the field was a disgrace. Everyone's on board with that. But both teams played on it. And there was an instance, and it was the Kadarius Toney touchdown, where Travis Kelce was mic'd up, and he was communicating with Toney and saying, under control, because he knew it was an ice rink out there. And that was an indication to me of, well, the Chiefs handled it better.
Oh, listen,
the Chiefs handled it better.
This isn't the Eagles lost the game because of the field conditions. It's as fans, we got robbed of what should have been a game that was not talked about the field. I don't care if it's the Eagles playing in this game. If Dallas is in that game, I would be complaining that we as fans deserve better than the field being discussed in a Super Bowl is disgraceful.
Well, that part I agree with.
The NFL passed the buck on that one. It wasn't their fault. It was Rihanna's fault. For all the practice runs she had. That's what took the toll on the field. When in doubt, blame the halftime act.
Yeah.
Nice job, Roger Goodell.
Well, and guess what? Next year, the field is the same field next year. They better figure it out, because if Philadelphia is not in that game, I'm still ticked off that I had to watch a game that the player, Sipos essentially said that he punted the ball and turned his ankle when he planted.
Yeah. Well, if magically Kansas City, they flipped the switch and they put a better field up and put it down, then I would give more credence to that. Bottom line is they played on the same shitty field they were able to play a perfect second half, essentially.
Absolutely. And we know the Eagles generally, we talked about it last week. In 52, they got the play. Their defense didn't play well, but they got the play. And when I go back to they never got the play. And you're wondering if that play would have been there had the conditions been a little better.
When I go back to the Jalen Hurts play, I'm not saying it's not a big play. Anytime you give up a defensive touchdown, it's a huge play. But to Jody's point, they recovered well. And to your point, your earlier point, Mike, about Jonathan Gannon, everybody's, defaults to him. I gotta go to 6 or 7 things before I bring up Jalen's touchdown. And the bottom line is
fumble.
Jalen's fumble that turned into a touchdown. Bottom line is what you said about Super Bowl 52, and I've said it on your show. They needed one play.
Yeah.
One play defensively.
Right.
They got it.
It's not that John Gannon
500 yards in Super Bowl 52, but they got the one play.
Right. It's not that John Gannon is not good enough to win that game. He clearly can win that. If you're in that game, you can win that game. On that day, and this is part of the thing. you can't replicate practicing against Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid. Like, you get the bullets flying at you at real time, and you have to figure it out. He said it. Look, on that day, Andy Reid's smarter than me. I'm not going to be smart. But how do you learn how to get smarter? You have to face that guy. And the first time you face him, or the second time, this is the second time they faced him, you're like, man, they're doing this, this, and this, and I haven't seen stuff like this before. How do you learn? From experience. The guy is a young coordinator who needs to learn. We're not saying he's perfect, but obviously he has a lot to learn, and we saw it on display in that game. Now, the one play, as they talked about, Peter King's article, the Chiefs lined up wrong. So you wouldn't have seen that formation because it didn't exist.
Yeah.
So, there's a lot out there. But I'll tell you what, this search is interesting because it's showing you, and as Jody, I think you mentioned right before I was coming on, they offered Gannon more money to stay here. That's how much they valued him, because they know that this is a smart guy who was learning on the job, but had a number 2 ranked defense while he was learning on the job here. And now they're scrambling around thinking, are we going to bring a college coach in here? Do we stay in-house? Do we bring a veteran guy? It seems that they are not prepared they weren't prepared for Gannon walking out the door.
Yeah, not as prepared, but I think a lot of that has to do with Nick Sirianni being an offensive head coach. So, as good as Shane Steichen was, and I think Shane Steichen was great, I think they're taking a hit on the offensive side as well. I think people are underestimating that. He is a great play caller, got a great feel for it. Maybe Brian Johnson's great, but I don't like that odds. I don't like those odds. So I think they're going to miss Shane Steichen as well. But as far as Jonathan Gannon, and you're right. I think Jody asked me that before you came on, and I about all the names and what they're looking at and what it means. And before I even get to that, I circle back to the willingness of Jeffrey Lurie to go where he wanted to go to keep Jonathan Gannon. That tells me more than anything else. And that's after the Super Bowl, where he just saw his own team's defense collapse. But again, there's so many narratives. The Andy Reid one is great because, look, we all know Andy's one of the best coaches who's ever lived. I think we could all agree with that. We can all stipulate. And the assumption is, well, he just embarrassed Jonathan Gannon. He just out-schemed him. And then they happen to have Patrick Mahomes mic'd up on the Sky Moore touchdown. And it's the Chiefs that are the Keystone Cops on the play before the Eagles turned into the Keystone Cops. They're not lined up correctly. They're going, what the hell are we doing? But the narrative before that is, he completely out-schemed Jonathan Gannon. It's interesting, and I think all these intricacies, but the bottom line is Jeffrey Lurie said, you know what? This guy's really good. I'm willing to pay him like a head coach to keep him. Why do people not believe that?
That's a good question. There's a lot of conspiracy theories. People thought that Howie Roseman, like, hey, Arizona, will you take this guy? Get him out here. I'm cracking up at that one. Look, fans act like one game is make and break your resume. Yeah. John Gannon's resume suggests that he got these interviews. They're not going to look at your resume and say, well, that one game was really bad. No, when you play a 17
one half, by the way, one half of one.
Right. When you play a 17 game season, you're not playing Patrick Mahomes every single week. These teams are saying, can you get me to the dance? And if we get one game on one day, we have a shot to win that game. But you got to get there. He had the number 2 I asked this question a lot. If you didn't like the Eagles' defense this year, whose defense did you like?
By the way, for those who don't believe that the Eagles went to whatever lengths they had to try and keep Jonathan Gannon, because neither Jeff Lurie or Howie Roseman has said yet, we offered him head coach money to stick around. Howie is on record as saying, and John, you'll tell me the first time he said this, we know we're renting Jonathan Gannon.
Oh, my God. Like, I think, 2 months after he was here.
Right.
He's consistently said that. He's consistently known that. And it turned out to be true, obviously. But they have tremendous.
It was a 2-year rental. It wasn't a bad rental. It wasn't like they had to bring it back to the shop a week later. It's a damn good rental of Jonathan Gannon for the Eagles.
And guys, this is, when Andy started to get his staff poached is when Andy started to have some troubles, because when you start to take your coaches who you feel comfortable with and you feel like, hey, I can give that guy play calling duties, I don't have to stand over him, that's really the sign of how the coach keeps this thing together. And Andy, when they started to take, Harbaugh and Shermer and Leslie Frazier and Sean McDermott and guys started to go, you have to replace all these guys and you have to build a new rapport. And Jason Avant was on with me at the Super Bowl, and he played for Andy in 2006 when he was in Philly. And he said, Andy wasn't even coaching. He was more worried about the front office duties, and he wasn't coaching barely at all. He was letting his assistants, and that's when Andy was struggling. We were like, what's going on here? And then he went to Kansas City and played for Andy again. And he said, my God, what a different guy, how detailed and creative. He had that zest for coaching again because he's back with the staff of guys that he wanted to be with and that brought him out of it. And, it shows that, like, you could put stuff on guys that you might not know and just be like, hey, you handle the defense, but you have to trust that guy. You have to be trusting of your staff. And now Nick's going to have to find a whole new group of guys that he's going to have to figure out whether he trusts them or not. He had that trust with this group. Now you got to try to find it again. And I think that's probably the biggest thing of this whole offseason is, can Nick Sirianni find guys that he trusts? Now that's why you would say, why not just hire in-house and just, go with those guys? The fact that they might have to go outside the building to bring a guy in here shows you that maybe they're not sure. Now, if Denard Wilson ends up getting that job, maybe that trust is right back and it all kind of goes. But the Eagles went through this before where they had success and lost coaches, and that didn't go so well for a while.
No, Andy and Doug Peterson, obviously, with Frank Reich and John DiPilippo more recently. And then, you have sort of the disconnect that built because I wrote about this week. I got some pushback from the Eagles. They don't like that sentiment, that mentality, that belief that Howie Roseman is running the show and just telling coaches who they're going to hire. And to be fair, they don't do that. Howie doesn't do that. He gathers names and he brings them to the head coach, and the head coach interviews them, and then the head coach makes a decision. But he definitely steers them in a certain direction. And by the way, he's done a good job with it, just like everything else. Howie's the one who found Brian Johnson, not Nick Sirianni. Howie's the one who found Jamal Singleton, not Nick Sirianni. But, it wasn't like you have to hire this guy. He said, this guy's a really, in the case of Brian Johnson, this guy's a really good young coach. Talk to him. Then Nick talked to him. Nick liked him. Nick hired him. That's sort of how it works. Now, the problem with Doug Peterson was, I think Jeffrey gets a little antsy when the expectations aren't reached. So if you go back to Super Bowl 52, you win the title. They decree the new normal. Everybody remembers that. Well, it was more difficult than they assumed. And all of a sudden, still playoffs, but they even win a game with the double doink. Then they lose to New Orleans. Then they lose to Seattle the next year, still making the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, Doug gets loyal to his guys, whether it's Mike Rowe, Press Taylor, Carson Walsh. Now, the ironic thing, Press Taylor's the best example of this. The ironic thing was Press Taylor came into this organization under Chip Kelly. All you heard about Press Taylor from the Eagles, not Doug Peterson, from the Eagles, this kid's a great young coach. He mined the Philly special, by the way. Press Taylor found it on a meaningless Chicago Bears, Minnesota Vikings 2-point conversion. The Bears converted it using the Philly special. So it's really the Chicago special. And to be honest, many college teams, high school teams used it before the Bears. That's how sort of the NFL works. But he was this boy genius. And all of a sudden, because the expectations weren't met, he turned into an idiot overnight. Well, we can't keep Press Taylor. We can't keep Press Taylor. And now good for Press. He's an offensive coordinator in Jacksonville, and they're a playoff team, and Doug is at least being proved correctly in the short term. My larger point here, Mike, and Jody chime in as well. Why do people have to have it's either Nick's got autonomy or Howie's got autonomy? Why? Why do they are so headstrong about that? It's not the case. I'm telling you, it's not the case.
What did Gannon say on his way out the door? That, Andy's smarter than me. I'm not going to deny that, but I'll take something from Andy that 7 brains are better than 1, right? It's a little bit of a voice here and there. It's, a collaboration, and then somebody has to make the ultimate decision. But, ultimately, it's not one guy sitting in a room. Mad science is putting this whole thing together.
I think people think that, though.
It's an organizational collaboration that they all come together. We do it on every level. There's people in the chat. There's people watching that probably coach a little league baseball team. And you sit in a room with the other 2 dads and you say, all right, how are we going to figure out how to tell Joey's parent that he's not going to play all that much? Well, we'll put him on Joe's Pizza and we'll take him so that he gets more. That's a collaboration of how you put a roster together, even at the highest level. It's a lot more meticulous and there's a lot more going on, and the boardroom's a lot nicer. But there's multiple people who sit in a room and put an NFL roster together. That's the way it works.
John, I'll agree with your point on one end, and I'll disagree with it on the other. And the best example is the one we brought up earlier about Jamal Singleton. You said how he found him. He was their 9th choice. The coaches got to great lengths to point that out through this entire process. They interviewed and they interviewed and they interviewed. They just kept interviewing. And then they interviewed Singleton. They go, oh, here's our running back coach.
Well, I'll say that.
Took them 8 swings and misses before they got
on that, though.
So who gets credit for that?
I think Nick was exaggerating. My only point is.
You do. You think he was exaggerating that they didn't interview?
Yeah, they didn't get the 9.
Well, listen, in any field of
why
work.
Would he do that? Why would he?
It's just off the cuff.
Well, even if he doesn't,
I just mean the actual number.
Even if he doesn't, though, in any field of work, if you're the 8th guy, doesn't mean you're the 8th most talented. It means you were the 8th guy. Like I can walk into a radio station in another market and be way more talented than someone. They just haven't found me. They don't know me. They haven't heard me. That doesn't mean someone working somewhere is better than I am or better than anybody else. It's just that they might not know who certain talent is. The 8th guy could be more talented than your first choice. You just didn't know the 8th guy existed until later. So we found many situations where we talk about coaching and who's getting opportunities and who's not. It's who you know, who's in your pipeline. We always, soon as a coach leaves, well, who did he coach before? Who did he coach with? You feel comfortable with certain people because you know them. You're much more apt to say, I know that guy. I know he's a good guy. I know what he's doing. That doesn't mean he's the most talented guy. So there are guys who are more talented that are getting passed over, but I just don't know you. I don't know your personality. Are you going to fit in with my group of guys? Are we going to be able to sit at the table and talk about the same things? These are things that you just don't know. So there are more talented people that you might not talk to. You are talking to the pool of people. Now, some people do go outside their bubble and find people that they don't know. Hey, you were recommended by someone. I want to talk to you. So be like, Nick Sirianni's not the first choice. Doug Peterson wasn't the first choice. No. They tried to get other people in there. They finally decided, okay, we'll take Doug. Hey, look, Doug turns out to be better than your first option, your second option, your third option, but you didn't know that at the time.
Yeah, and to Jody's point, what I meant by how we found Jamal Singleton, look, Nick doesn't have time to cull through all that. Howie's got a whole staff. He doesn't have, like Chris Shula. He has a relationship with Chris Shula. So, it's common sense to say, well, Nick already knows the guy. Nick wants to talk to him about the job because he knows him. In the case of Jamal Singleton, there's no previous relationship. He didn't know him. So that's where the staff, and I shouldn't even say Howie and his staff put together a list, and they have these names and say, this guy's good, maybe take a look at him. And then Nick takes a look at Jamal Singleton and interviews him. And that's where he hit the home run. And Nick said, yeah, this is my guy. Slammed the podium. That's what I'm saying. But, that's Howie in the personnel department job to come up with names when you don't have a guy. Like if Tommy Reese, Nick loves Tommy Reese, loves him. And every year he says, do you want to come to the NFL? Do you want to come to the NFL? They coach together with the Chargers. To this point, Tommy is not. Now he's in Alabama. And he'll probably be in the NFL at some point. He's got guys like that. Shane Steichen was one of them. Kevin Patullo. He's extremely close to Kevin Patullo. But there are other guys, the holdovers, Jeff Stoutland. Howie's like, well, you don't know Jeff Stoutland, but trust me on this one. You want to keep Jeff Stoutland. Worked out pretty well. So that part of it it's sort of a mix and match. Nobody's saying you got to hire this guy. Nobody. The only time that happens, and it happens more on the other end, when it's you got to fire this guy, and that's when Jeffrey Lurie needs a scapegoat, and expectations haven't met. There will be times when they'll say, "Nope, we can't go that direction," and that's what happened with Doug Peterson.
Agreed and understood, but I will just say this since we brought him up earlier. I remember having Jeff Lurie on our show on WIP way back when he just became the owner of the Eagles and he was making his second coaching hire. And he said, Andy Reid blew us away when he came in. Had never been even a coordinator, was a positional coach. And he came in and had these slew of binders with information on the guys he wanted to hire for his first coaching staff. Had never even been a coordinator, and Andy already knew exactly who he wanted for his entire coaching staff before he ever got the job. Well, then Nick Sirianni should be able to do the same thing. If Nick doesn't have time to be able to go out and think about coaches from other teams. Oh, Andy Reid did, and he came prepared, and that's why he became the head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
There's a big, number one, there's a big difference in the time because at the time, Jeffrey was a very young owner. At least, from a standpoint of experience. Andy, again, look at his first staff. Andy had been doing that for years and years and years. So that's your first staff. And Andy had been on that, even though nobody else was on the Andy radar. Andy had put together, everybody has coaching notebooks, assistant coaches who have ambition, and that's most of them. They have coaching notebooks. I just mentioned there's certain guys Nick has, Tommy Reese, guys he did bring here, the Steichens of the world, the Patullos of the world. He had core guys he wanted to take. Sometimes you can't take guys, as Andy Reid was the first one to say, go build your own staff. Don't take my guys. So there's a lot of guys you have relationships with you can't get for whatever reason, timing. Nick wanted to keep Jim Bob Cooter last year. Couldn't do it. Didn't have a position. Kevin was still here. Kevin Patullo was still here. Shane Steichen. So there's a lot that goes into it. My point is he couldn't get the whole staff together. So when you don't have a guy, when you don't have a ready-made guy, and that could be not because you don't have one, Jody, because you can't get somebody because he's under contract. If it's a lateral move, it's not a coordinator move. Maybe you can't get him. And then you got to go, well, we got to look for somebody else. And that's where the Brian Johnsons, the Jamal Singletons come in the world. And that's the personnel department. They already have a list. They have a list.
When you talked about Andy, Jody, that was Jeff Lurie's second year as an owner. Well, here we are 23 years later. He's made many more connections and now has a much better understanding of who are some, and like the Eagles, other teams know we can go to the Eagles because they generally give us people that are well-trained, very good at their job. So like Gannon, we said, he's only been a coordinator for 2 years. He hasn't seen all the bullets flying at him. 10 years from now as a coordinator, okay, maybe he sees, okay, Patrick Mahomes, I've seen him 3, 4, 5, 6 times now. I'm much more prepared for what Andy and Patrick are going to throw at me. Same thing with Jeffrey Lurie in these coaching searches. And by the way, Jeffrey Lurie and this regime have done a really good job of uncovering coaches that no one's ever heard of.
Yeah.
Yeah. By the way, Andy Reid, not the second year of Jeff Lurie's ownership.
No, second.
Not
coach.
even the second coach of Jeff Lurie's ownership. Yeah. He inherited Kotite. He hired Ray Rhodes, and then he finally got Andy Reid. So he's a little bit more experienced.
Second hire.
Second hire. Right. He was here with Kotite.
He was here. He inherited him.
He inherited Kotite. Yeah.
But
and then,
so whatever it was, 94, 95.
Andy Reid thereafter.
But he was still a young owner.
Yeah.
He didn't have a ton of experience.
All right, Mike, last thing. I asked John this yesterday. We know the upsides and the downsides. Push comes to shove when we get closer to free agency. They got to make a call on this within the next franchise tag is 2 weeks, right, John? The window opened up 2 days ago.
Opened up yesterday or 2 days ago, whatever it was.
It stays open for 2 weeks to make the decision as to whether you're going to slap a franchise tag on a guy. You think they're going to go there with C.J. Gardner-Johnson? The safety position is one of the less expensive ones because they're all broken down by position. The running back franchise tag, quarterback franchise tag, the defensive end franchise tag. Safety is still, relatively speaking, as compared to all the other positions, not a bad price at $14 million and change. But then you're locked into that number. There's no spreading it out. There's no phony years on the back end that you can relieve your cap hit for the upcoming season. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson worth $14 million against the cap next year?
He's an interesting one because he is versatile. I mean, they use him at slot corner, but he generally was a safety. He led the league in interceptions, but now you're getting a new coordinator. What does the new coordinator want to do with that position? Knowing the organizational philosophy, you would think that Hargrave may be a candidate just because they value the interior line so much. Do they want to lose Hargrave and Fletcher Cox? Are they ready to go to Jordan Davis full-time and Milton Williams and maybe draft someone? So I wouldn't be shocked if Hargrave was just because of the way they build on the lines. I know we heard C.J. Gardner-Johnson's name, and I like him a lot, and I figure – but I would think that the organizational philosophy is always the line, regardless of who the coordinator is. The coordinator would have to come in, baby, and say, look, the safety position for me, that guy is so valuable. I need that guy here. But then you would think that would have to be a hire within the next week or so, right? Is there a timeline on when they want that coordinator here? So they're in a weird spot.
You probably want them in place for the combine. So
right.
But we'll see if they get that done. March 7th is the deadline for the franchise tag. If the Eagles do use it, it would be strictly a strategic use of it.
Yeah.
They do not want anybody playing under the franchise tag. They never do. It doesn't make sense from a salary cap standpoint. And even more so this year because they're probably going to get the Jalen Hurts extension done. You don't want big hits on your cap for 1 year. You want to use those voidable years, which have been the Howie Roseman, Jake Rosenberg trick, and everybody copies the Eagles. And that's why they do what they do.
They would be the two guys. Oh, I guess Bradbury. Now, the interesting thing will be, I had a guy the other night insistent with me that who the hell would ever want to play for John Gannon after what happened in the Super Bowl? This is what fans think about. I said, because Gannon now, you would imagine, much like when Buddy went to Arizona. What did he do? He took guys with him. Bradbury, Hargrave. TJ Edwards. You would imagine that Gannon's going to target some of the guys. And by the way, I told the guy, oh, yeah, I would hate to play for a coordinator who allowed me to have my career best year. Yeah. He had 4 guys have career high sacks. One guy.
By the way, I went through Vic Fangio's career, 19 years as a coordinator. How many years did he have as a head coach? 2 or 3?
3.
3 years as a head coach. Never had the number 2 defense in the NFL. Never got that high. Number 3 was as high as he got.
Right. Brandon Graham has been in the league for his whole career in Philadelphia. He had his best season ever.
That I don't agree with. He had his most sacks.
All right. The fans love sacks. Yeah. He had the most sacks he ever had this year. Jody won sacks. Hassan Reddick has been in 3 different defenses.
Yeah,
Arizona, 11
year.
sacks.
Josh
Carolina,
Sweat had a
12
career
sacks.
year.
He
James
plays for
Bradbury,
John Gannon, and he
TJ
has
Edwards.
19 sacks.
Yeah.
You don't think these guys enjoyed playing in this defense for John Gannon? You guys are out of your minds.
Yeah. Josh Sweat, Hassan Reddick, Javon Hargrave, James Bradbury, TJ Edwards, Marcus Epps, Chauncey Gardner-Johnson. Every single one of those players had their best season under the worst defensive coordinator in the history of mankind, at least according to some Eagles fans.
Who the Eagles were ready to pay head coach money to
Yes.
stick around and be the defensive coordinator
Yes.
for. M. Gill, good job as always, buddy. We will be punching you up again next Wednesday. Thanks for jumping on when you do. We'll keep it going.
At Mike Gill Show, by the way, follow Mike on Twitter, the Sports Bash. I'll be on today, I think. Drive Time, ESPN South Jersey.
What college shirt will you be wearing next week, Mr. Gill?
I've got Princeton, Vanderbilt, Syracuse. I've visited a lot of different universities. I did play-by-play for a while, so I've been all over the place.
Yeah.
See, you're
How many West Virginia shirts do you have?
Oh, I probably have 30.
30.
Without the green screen, you can go orange for us next week. We couldn't wear orange in front of our green screen.
No.
You can go whatever color.
it's
We
a
got some
blue-
orange behind you, buddy. That might actually not mesh. So, all right, maybe not Syracuse. Gil, always a pleasure. Thanks, bud.
All right, boys. See ya.
Thanks, Mike Gill from the Sports Bash down the shore, 97.3 ESPN Radio. All right, McDonald and McMullen. We got an hour in the books. That means we got an hour left to play. Coming up in less than 20 minutes now. Our buddy Paul Domwich from the 3013.com and
Tush Push Talk.
Oh,
Tush Push Talk.
He was the guy who got Dean Blandino to go on record and say, yeah, this is a fait accompli. They're taking it out of the NFL. It's not pleasing to the optic nerve, and the NFL will be looking to remove that. Just one of several things we'll be talking about with Paul Domwich coming up here on Birds 365.
Philadelphia fans were cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery, go for the win, go to Ocean.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
My name is Fran Soleno. I'm a managing director here at Del Valle Insurance Group. Been in the business for over 36 years, saving people money on their insurance needs. Give us a call. Let us help you custom design an insurance plan that meets both your needs and budget.
Mike and Mac here with you on Birds 365. Thank Mike Gill for jumping in like he does each and every single Wednesday. Johnny Mac does spots on his show on 97.3 Down the Shore ESPN Radio. So always appreciate the contribution Gill gives us when he jumps in with us. One of the questions I would have liked to ask Mike Gill, and again, our fault, we kind of went down a wormhole with the whole coaching thing and history and overanalyzing what's transpired before and how it applies to today. Here's a question I didn't want to get to him, but we just ran out of time. If Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown are playing football together 2 years from now, and it's not here in Philadelphia, it's somewhere else, where would you suggest that would be, John? Because A.J. came out and said, yo, Howie, get it done.
Yeah.
If not, you can package me to wherever Jalen's playing. You get it that I've got my tongue implanted in my cheek here. Don't think it's happening. But if it would be, come on, McMullen, Mr. GM, come up with a team, a landing spot where those two guys could go together and continue to hold
I
hands.
guess their backyards, because there's no way they're not going to be in Philadelphia. There's certainly, I would say, in 2 years, 100% Jalen Hurts is in Philadelphia. A.J. Brown, I'll put him at 99.5% because, probably shouldn't talk about the GM. Let him do his work. But no, there is no chance that – think about it, Jody. If Jalen's going to sign his extension, even if the worst case scenario happens, he has a catastrophic injury, he drops off a table, he's still going to be around in 2 years, whether it's rehabbing, whether it's, going through it where we went, how long did it take Carson Wentz to finally drop off the table? So that time frame is too short. They're both going to be here, and they're both going to be big parts of this team. They're both really good players, and I wouldn't be concerned about that. But AJ should probably not say that kind of stuff. That's the only thing I would say.
Sticking up for his guy. No one should be surprised by it. We might not agree with it or like it, but nobody should be surprised by it that he went down that road. And yeah, I'm going to keep that sliver intact. Sorry, Eagle fans. If the negotiation goes awry, and I don't know enough about, do you have enough information and or opinion on Jalen's agent and how difficult he could be in a negotiation?
It's a she.
Or she can be, right. Thank you for correcting me.
Nicole Lynn is his agent. No difficulty whatsoever in the fact that not that say that she's going to be hard on the team, and he's going to get $47 to $52 million. But the Eagles know the cost of doing business. That usually in these instances, there are certain teams that are going to be really difficult. The Eagles are not one of those teams, but Jeffrey Lurie's proven it. One of the reasons the Eagles are the Eagles is because they have good ownership. Now, we got the comments back. I saw one, we were talking about Seth earlier. Well, it happened to Jeff Saturday. I saw one comment. Yeah, Jim Irsay's the owner. It's not happening in Philadelphia because they have good ownership.
And what was Jeff Saturday's extensive one-loss record as the head coach?
Yeah, well, not even the point. I mean, they would never go in that direction. Jim Irsay's a bit of a wild card. He's going to do some unconventional things, and he even tried to bring him back until he was talked out of it. Jeffrey's good, and people should appreciate And I criticize Jeffrey when he deserves criticism. And an example of, Nick's got to watch his back, because when the expectations are this high, and Doug Peterson went through it, Jeffrey Lurie doesn't like when expectations aren't reached. And when expectations aren't reached, then you get scapegoats. That's my one criticism of Jeffrey Lurie. As far as compared to other owners, I mean, easily top 5 in the NFL, and probably higher than that, probably close to, 1, 2, 3, close to that range. So
I agree, but just one question. And please don't take me wrong here, Eagles fans, because if you've been listening to me here, not Birds 365, but certainly way back when on WIP and other places, every once in a while you run into a Terrell Owens. After the season that the Eagles had going to the Super Bowl, they should have been able to stay together as a team. And some people have vehemently disagreed with me on this. T.O. blew up the team. That's my opinion. I wasn't there every single day. I wasn't an Eagle beat writer, but I had enough guys that I was close with, and there was one guy on the team that I actually knew. And again, they drew sides with the Philadelphia Eagles. There was Donovan's side, the Eagles side, and the T.O. side. The people that I trusted most, that I knew best, said, yeah, it's just outrageous the way T.O. handled himself and what he was asking for and how the relationships went. Donovan wasn't blameless, but it was certainly more on T.O. The Eagles should have been able to keep that team together. And Jeff Lurie, who is an owner, a top 5 owner, a guy who's willing to pay, a guy who's willing to go the extra degree, couldn't keep that from blowing up. So there is always the possibility that a contract or the ask of a contract becomes so outrageous that you just can't good conscience go write the check. Is there any chance that that's the case with Jalen Hurts? That's the question I'm asking.
No, you're comparing Jalen Hurts to Terrell Owens. I mean, you just said T.O.'s history is well documented. Look, tremendous player, phenomenally talented, but he's a knucklehead. I mean, Jalen Hurts is the exact opposite of that. He's the most grounded, 24-year-old you're ever going to meet.
So Jeff Lurie will take advantage of the fact that he's grounded and be able to get him for less than maybe he could.
No, I didn't say he was dumb. I said he was grounded. He's very mature. He's very. You see him. He's very focused on his job. He's very focused on getting better. The tremendous work ethic. T.O. was T.O. is the definition of the diva wide receiver. When you look that up in the dictionary, you're going to see his picture.
Okay.
He is, and whenever Antonio Brown gave him a run for his money. Whenever you have a player like that who's willing to blow up a locker room, you shouldn't. Here's the bottom line, Jody. If you want to blame Jeffrey Lurie for anything involving T.O., blame him for bringing him in the first place. And people don't want to do that because he had the one great season and they made the Super Bowl and he was a phenomenal player. The time bomb. That it's ticking. It's coming. You should know. And that was in the midst of it. So you're willing to take that opportunity. You probably learned from that. We talked about, you learn from things, experience. He learned from being an owner. He learned from hiring Ray Rhodes. All right, I don't want a defensive coach anymore. This is an offensive league. I'm going to go in that direction. And he's done a tremendous job. I'm not saying he gets everything right. He doesn't get everything right. Why did he bring Deshaun Jackson back? I have no stinking idea. That was a dumb decision. There's dumb decisions along the way, but everything's a percentage. They make more good decisions than most other teams. That's how I judge.
I understand the point you're making, and please, Eagle fans, you're going to kill me here because I'm even suggesting something could go awry with the negotiation. My only point in comparing the two situations was this. Just on a purely football level, there was no reason why anyone should have thought that the Eagles wouldn't be able to keep T.O. and Donovan together and after that Super Bowl loss, continue on and take a couple of shots and maybe actually win one. It just made too much football sense that they wouldn't try and do that. A fly came into the ointment. In this case, it was T.O.'s diva mentality. You and I agree on that. I'm just wondering, is there a potential fly in the ointment that
there's always, I think the better
can't overcome?
I think the better example would be Carson Wentz. There are certain things you can't predict. Nobody predicted we're going to draft a quarterback in the second round to be a cost-effective backup, and the starting quarterback who was just made the highest paid player in franchise history, less than a year before, or whatever it was. I think it was less than a year. Is going to lose his mind because he's, got conspiracy theories in his head. I don't know how you can control that. There's always a fly there's always a fly around the corner, Jody. But it ain't going to be Jalen Hurts.
Is there a fly in the potential Jalen Hurts negotiation?
It ain't going to be Jalen Hurts. It ain't going to be Jalen Hurts. There's going to be other flies in the ointment, but going to where you want to go ultimately, which is obviously the Super Bowl. By the way, that's a fly in the ointment. The actual expectations. They're unrealistic. I talk about it all the time. You got a whole bunch. We got the commenters back there. Oh, Gill and McMullen are stupid. Blah blah blah. They think that they think Jonathan get. They all think. We had somebody on the show, and I don't want to pick on them, but they said that can't happen at the Super Bowl. That can't happen. And I say to myself, you're in the Super Bowl. You're in the Super Bowl. There's 30 other teams that aren't in the Super Bowl. There's 30 other teams that couldn't make it to that level. Right there, you got to start. That's where you got to start and say, this is a pretty good football team.
Right,
was it disappointing? Sure.
Sometimes they bring it on themselves. Doug Peterson, this is the new norm. Should have never said those. Should have never said those words, because he confirmed the new level of expectations.
Yeah.
When he
well,
said
they
that.
not only said it.
Sirianni hadn't done that yet. Nobody on the Eagles have wisely done that yet. But you need to be careful with.
Well, Jody, they not only said it, they plastered it all over the building. They had new normal, up in the building. It was a mistake. That's a fly in the ointment. Because I don't care who they hire, and I've said this pretty consistently, they are not going to match the success statistically of this team. They are not. They are not. And I'll say it 100 times. They are not going to match. Now, if they win the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. If you're 12-5 and win the Super Bowl, it doesn't matter. But they're not
14-3. How dare you go 12-5? You win the Super Bowl. All is forgiven.
Yeah. En route to it, you're going to hear a lot of that. Oh, this team's not as good. This team's not as good. And ultimately, the only way they can disprove it is by winning the Super Bowl. So the expectations are already out of whack. If you want to talk about flies in the ointment, start there.
Correct. And some jerk here yesterday on Birds 365 said, oh, yes, I expect the Eagles to be back in the Super Bowl. They should be the favorite to be back in the Super Bowl next year in the NFC. Somebody did a pretty good job of setting that bar pretty high, jerk. I guess I should start to apologize.
Well, they should be.
No, I'm not apologizing. They are the best team in the NFC, and they should be the favorite to go back to the Super Bowl again.
They should be favorite right now. What's today's date? I got to get my phone. February 22nd.
2-2-2.
They should be the favorite right now on February 26th, but we haven't gone through free agency. We haven't gone through the coaching staff changes. We haven't gone through the draft. A lot of dominoes to fall. On February 22nd, they are the favorite. Now, get me in April after the draft, after free agency.
A whole bunch of things can happen between now and then that will potentially change it. And one of them could be the removal of the tush push. Yeah, it's going, folks. Sorry to say. Now, again, before we have punch Damo up, I'm already putting qualifiers on it. They're not outlaying the ability to sneak the football in the National Football League. You're still going to be able to run a quarterback sneak, and Jalen Hurts is still going to be able to pump 900 pounds with his legs. He just isn't going to have Dallas Goedert behind him, picking him up and making sure he gets that first down. Paul Domwich got Dean Blandino to go on the record and say he thinks it's going by the wayside this offseason in the NFL. We're going to talk to him about that and everything else Eagles related. Damo's up next here on Birds 365.
The greatest fans on earth. It's a bold statement, but would you expect anything less from Philadelphia? 58 years of heartache creates a toughness, a grit, a resolve not found in most. Sure, our prayers were answered, but now that we've had a taste, we're looking for more. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Go for the beers, go for the cheers, go for the hit and the hits, go for the scene, go for the screens, go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
We all know that taxes are just part of life. It's true during our working years, but also in retirement. But what you might not know is up to 85% of your Social Security benefits might be taxed. Our team at Thrive Financial has helped retire thousands of people across the Delaware Valley by asking questions they never knew they needed to ask, including how their Social Security benefits might be taxed. It's time to be proactive on taxes. Get your Thrive Retirement Tax Playbook today.
Jeff D'Ambrosio doesn't need a special event to appreciate his customers. Jeff shows his appreciation to them every day of the year. Jeff makes sure to stock more new inventory than anyone and guarantees prices and payments that nobody can beat. There are so many reasons that thousands of customers know Jeff is the easy, friendly place to do business. More for their trades. No judgment zone for credit issues. The best, most reliable service department in the country. That's why I like Jeff, and I know you will too. Jeff will satisfy you every day. Jeff D'Ambrosio, Destination Downingtown, Owner Appreciation Event.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Why do millions of people every year from around the world visit Philly's Rocky statue?
You want to tell me the sky is burgundy with green stripes and yellow polka dots? I'll meet you on that. But you're never going to convince me Rocky is anything other than the pure greatness that it is. Never going to happen.
Join me, Paul Farber, for WHYY's The Statue. We're going on a journey to explore the biography of the Rocky statue. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Got your Mag guys here on Birds 365. We get to talk NFL football with Paul Domwich, and wherever that's the case here on Birds 365. We're lucky you guys streaming are lucky because Damo always brings the best knowledge and the best Hawaiian shirts whenever he jumps in with us. Damo, did you know when you reached out to Dean Blandino and did your article for the 33rd team that this was the number one topic you wanted to talk about, or did you just gravitate there by happenstance because it's gotten the notification and the attention it should have gotten? It's a pretty important topic.
Well, I mean, it's been a topic for much of the season, particularly as it's become more of a prevalent weapon for the Eagles in the playoffs. And I kind of knew where Dean was landing on this from previous conversations with him. So, so I mean, I kind of had a hint. And I also had a feeling that this is what's going to happen in the off season. It's going to be heavily discussed in March at the owners' meetings in Arizona, and probably, will be eliminated.
Yeah, and three-quarters of the league has to agree. So, already I saw Sean Payton say, "Nah, I'd like to use it." And he had Taysom Hill. He could have used it before. And we'll see if they can get three-quarters. But yeah, I probably said to you, Dom, I predicted they're going to ban this thing. And by the way, I don't necessarily disagree with it. I think it should be banned. I said it back in the Bush days when it was the Bush, Reggie Bush. I didn't like it. I have no problem with them banning it. I don't even think it's going to affect the Eagles that much because Jalen Hurts is the biggest part of this success. It's nice to have that insurance plan of guys pushing them. I don't think it's going to change the effectiveness that much.
Yeah, I mean, from the standpoint of the league, I mean, they feel it's not a good look. It's just an ugly looking play that doesn't emphasize what they want emphasized, the athleticism, the power. There's sort of power in this play, but, in a rugby sort of way. But you're right about the Eagles. I think Jalen's percentage will go down slightly. I don't think it'll be automatic. I can think of a couple quarterback sneaks that he made that he wouldn't have made if not for for a final push. What I'll be interested to see is how it affects Nick's thinking. Will it still be automatic on 4th and 1? Will he have to think hard about, well, it's a short one, it's not a short one? Those kind of things. And also
fourth and 1 from the 32 on your side of the field, that might change. He might change that thinking.
And as I mentioned in the story, there's a combination here. Not only might they eliminate it, but if Jason Kelce retires, you're losing an important part of why this has been a successful play. I mean, nobody, despite his size, nobody does that better than Jason. So will Cam Jurgens do it as well? We'll see.
When do you think we're going to hear from Kelce? I know you can't push him. You can't try and nudge him or anything. Like he should be given the chance to make the decision on whatever time frame he sees fit because he's earned that kind of latitude. How do you think it plays timeline-wise?
I had to guess. I mean, I think it'll be fairly soon. I mean, he doesn't want to keep the team hanging in the air, not knowing what to do with regard to the position, the cap. I think we could hear something in the next week and a half.
Yeah, I think Jason will let the Eagles know so they can plan. And I think it has a dramatic effect because, Damo, I think if Jason returns, I think Isaac is probably leaving. But if Jason doesn't return, I think the Eagles make a big effort to get Isaac back and have Cam Jurgens take over at center. So I think it would have a profound effect on free agency, and I think Jason knows that as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's going to affect two positions, so they need to know going forward.
Yeah.
Now, all those guys are pretty tight, so what is Isaac Seumalo saying to Jay? Is he shooting him texts? Going, yeah, retirement sounds great to me. Wish I had your money. I could retire. Is he attempting to influence Jason's decision if McMullen has it right? Which, oh, by the way, I agree with him. Jason Kelce will dictate whether Isaac Seumalo stays a Bird, maybe more than anybody else.
Well, Isaac's coming off a good season is going to get paid really well.
He's going to get paid no matter what.
Anybody. If it's not the Eagles, it'll be somebody else. So I don't think. I don't think he cares a whole lot whether it's here or someplace else. I mean, he knows it's a business. He probably, I would assume he'd rather stay, but I don't think he's going to ever. All of those guys respect Jason too much to let their own interests affect, try to influence Jason. They want him back because of, he's coming off probably at the age of 35, the best season of his career. But aside from that, they're going to let him make his own mind up.
Yeah. And yeah, what's interesting, Jason, I don't know if he had his third daughter, but it was on the Bird, so I assume.
It's kind of been radio silence.
Yeah, radio silence. But obviously, so, his third daughter, that plays into it as well. A lot of decisions. And Jason, has said, Damo, to us, it looks like, no, he's pretty healthy. Now he said, I'm still banged up, so he's got to go through that at age 35. But a lot of things to decide. And for the Eagles as a whole, because they have so many free agents, and our buddy Adam Kaplan, and I think people misinterpreted what Adam said, that they would potentially use the franchise tag on C.J. Gardner-Johnson. That's not the Eagles' MO, but they could use it as a strategy if they feel things are going in a negative direction before March 15th. Just put the tag on him, make sure he can't go anywhere else, and then get the long-term deal down the road. You think that's a potential?
As a temporary solution, as a long-term one, no. It ties him up too badly. I mean, you've got to assume, Jalen's going to sign his extension sooner rather than later. They have some cap room, but not a lot when the cap goes up. And, they want to, I assume, they're facing a challenge here with the people they're going to lose as far as replacing them either with draft picks or veteran free agents and staying in the mix for the Super Bowl. So, they don't want to, Howie's going to be very careful how he spends his cap room. And that's why I don't think he would be willing to franchise a guy for very long.
All right, Damo, I've got another secondary question for you, but over at the corner rather than the safety position. We know that Bradbury is a free agent. We know he's on record as saying, I'm going to cash in this year, guys. If it's Philadelphia, love it. If it's not, see you later, bye. He's going to be difficult to replace. They have a high top 10 draft pick, could be at a cornerback. Then they'll play the free agent market with everybody else. How much emphasis do they have to put on the cornerback position? Because they surely have shown before they put an emphasis on it. But not only did they have to replace Bradbury, for the second time in 3 years, Avonte Maddox has missed significant time. He played all 16 games last year, but the year before that, he only played 10 out of 16. And this year, he only played 10 out of 17. Are we worried about Avonte Maddox now that he's an injury-prone player? And if so, if you
just
got
had
Maddox
surgery, by the way, Avonte had surgery.
That's why I brought it up, because I saw an Instagram picture of him in the hospital with his toe up. Is that a concern for the Eagles this offseason, that cornerback with Darius Slay on one side and then question marks on the other? We all think Maddox can play, but if he's going to miss 5, 6, 7 games a year, you have to have someone else to step in and play, maybe better than Josiah Scott did this year. How big is the cornerback position for the Eagles this offseason?
Well, Maddox first. The dilemma there is you don't want him outside. He's not an outside corner. He can hang on for a little bit in short spurts, but he's a slot corner. The problem is he's an undersized slot corner, and that's why he keeps getting hurt. But that's where he is, unless you move him to safety. But you got to find a replacement for him. It's in the slot before you do that. So they've got, I'm assuming Bradbury's gone because of the fact that he clearly has put money above all else with regard to his decision going forward here. When you start stating that right out of the gate, there's no sentimentality about, I really had a good time here with the Eagles. I want to stay if they'll give me a better, a close to a good deal. So I'm guessing he's gone, and I'm guessing that cornerback is going to be a really, really high priority in the draft.
Could be number 10. Yeah. The Eagles have number 10 and number 30. So, they're going to need 2 starters out of that group, and it's obviously going to be easier at number 10. But as far as the free agents, you're right. The other one is Javon Hargrave. So I want to talk about it from CJ and TJ's perspective. CJ, we talked about a little bit, TJ Edwards versus, say, Bradbury and Javon Hargrave. Now, where I'm going with that is you got 2 guys coming off their rookie deals who are 25, 26 versus 30-year-old guys. Howie wants to pay those 25 26-year-olds coming into the second contract. That's generally the philosophy of the organization. Is that right? Wrong? Should they consider it more when you have dominant players in their 30s?
Yeah, I mean, it's in my mind, they've got to keep Hargrave, John. Jordan Davis didn't exactly knock anybody's socks off, but you got to assume he's going to get better this second season. But Fletcher Cox is going to, I don't see any way he stays. So, you've got to find another interior defensive lineman. Either Hargrave or somebody else. And, Hargrave has his pass rush ability that he showed this season was just, was eye-opening. He came to this team as a nose tackle. Last year, if he had a deficiency, it probably was stopping the run. But he was a difference maker at rushing the quarterback, and that's what league is all about. So I can't see any way they let him go, no matter what it costs, no matter what they feel about younger guys.
All right, Dom, I'm going to roll the dice a little bit here. If you had been advised by your lawyers not to comment, so be it. But I'm hoping you can be upfront with us. After the outstanding post you had about Dean Blandy saying the tush push is on the way out, did the good folks at JAKIB Media ask you to take a performance-enhancing drug test like they did for DK Mitchell because he looked as good as he did on the court in the NBA's All-Star Game celebrity game? What the hell was that all about? Does the NFL really do that? Do they really, during the offseason, go, oh, shoot, look at what this guy did. Let's get him in for a performance-enhancing drug test. I saw the text that he put up on his Instagram, and they said, you've been selected. What do you mean selected? How do you get selected before? Isn't it
I didn't see that. Was that DK Metcalf?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You didn't see his Instagram post? You know this story, Damo?
I saw JJ Watt, who retired, and they're asking him to take tests. So that doesn't make sense.
If he comes out of retirement. No, if you guys didn't see this, he put it up on his Instagram. He got a text from an NFL employee who said, DK, you have been selected for performance-enhancing tests. We must talk immediately so we can set up a test time tomorrow, because they don't give you like a 2-week advance notice where you can get something into your system to take the performance-enhancing drugs out of your system. You got to show up within the next 24 hours, and they send them a notification, which they do with players all the time. Damo, I know you know this, but they use the word selected, that you've been selected for performance-enhancing drug testing now. Is that normal? Or DK was making a big deal out of saying, they're only testing me because I looked as good out there on the floor in the All-Star game that I did. Did the NFL just do another stupid thing, kind of like the field at Arizona?
I'm not sure the text was legitimate. Somebody's, do we know that that's been confirmed by the NFL? I haven't seen anything. He could be just getting trolled here. I don't,
No, it's DK. DK photoshopped it onto his own Instagram. So you think he's being trolled by somebody else and just bought it hook, line, and sinker?
I think so. The NFL's got more important things to deal with right now.
They're not watching the NBA All-Star game. That would be my guess. They're not watching.
They're always trying to protect the shield.
Hey, DK always looks like that, so there's no surprise for what he looks like. Yeah,
there may be an NFL team that's thinking of signing Mac McClung, but other than that, I don't think they paid a whole lot of the weekend.
By the way, the process worked. Philadelphia finally has a championship. Mac McClung, congratulations. But I do want to talk about the coordinator, Damo, for coordinator positions. I want to pick your brain on what it means. Offensive coordinator, we kind of all know it's going to be Brian Johnson. Right. Defensive coordinator. All right. First, that news comes out. JG talks to Peter King. Eagles are willing to pay him head coach money to stay. They're talking everybody under the sun. Vance Joseph, Sean Desai. Now it's Chris Shula, Rick Minner's kid, Jim Leonard. Did I miss anyone? What does it tell you that the defensive coordinator search is going the way it goes? Or does it tell you anything? Or is it about, hey, we want to talk to a bunch of people so we can circle back and say Denard Wilson was the best guy?
Well, it might tell me, and I'm referencing Mike Sealski's story this morning, that maybe Howie and Jeffrey have said aren't crazy about Denard Wilson and have told Nick to go look around. The possibility they had, regardless of whether they were going to hire Denard or promote Denard or not, they had to go outside and interview a minority candidate. So that I can understand why they're interviewing Vance Joseph. The thing about Vance Joseph that I find interesting, he's a blitzer. His teams are in the top 5 in blitz percentage every year since he's been a coordinator or a head coach, which is kind of a contrast to Jonathan Gannon, and a contrast. I don't know what that means with regard to Denard Wilson. I don't know if he would blitz more than Gannon. I don't know whether Howie and Jeffrey want a guy that blitzes more than Jonathan Gannon. If they were going to offer Gannon head coaching money, then they would have been, obviously would have been happy with his style of defense. So I don't know. I guess they're just being thorough, and you're right. They then can go back and promote Denard, and no one can say they didn't look around. I think he's a good choice, but we'll see. I still think, Vance Joseph is a factor here somehow.
All right. I do want your selection on this one. John and I debated a little bit earlier. Of the 2 defecting coordinators, if you use a 2-year frame, because I think that's the quote-unquote new norm in the NFL, because you can get fired after 2 years. Shoot, down in Houston, you get fired after 1 year. But the rest of the National Football League, you're pretty much locked into a job for 2 years. So for 2 years, who's in a better position to succeed? Steichen in Indianapolis or Gannon in Arizona? Because they had very comparable records. Indianapolis was 4-12-1, which was better than Arizona, who was 4-13. So there's a reason why those jobs opened up. The teams are pretty damn bad this year. Who's got a better chance to jump ahead and improve right away, Arizona or Indianapolis?
Well, I'm going to assume that Indianapolis is going to find a way to get a quarterback that can actually play. They've got a high draft pick. They'll probably bring in one of those, either trade up or stay at 4 and get one of those young guys, which will help them. Aside from that, the rest of their team is not horrible. I think Shane stands a better chance of succeeding there, even though he's in a conference now with Jacksonville, which is going to be good for quite a while. I think Tennessee's, I don't know what's going to happen there. The Cardinals' job, I think it's a death trap. You're at the mercy of Kyler Murray. Does Kyler feel like playing, or does he just feel like collecting his paycheck? I don't know. Does he feel like, maybe baseball's for him? Just, I don't trust him. I don't trust his dedication to the game. There was a reason that when he signed the deal, they put in that clause where he had to study 5 hours a week. Their lines need to be rebuilt. It's just a bad situation in Arizona. And so, I think Shane Steichen's got a better chance of succeeding than Jonathan Gannon. Plus, you're dealing with the Bidwell family. And, he may get a year, he may get 2 years. It's hard to say. I realize Shane's dealing with a nut job in Indianapolis as well.
He's not exactly Jeffrey Lurie either, Jim Irsay.
No, but at least they've got a GM in this that kind of can act as a rational thinker in Chris Ballard. So I would give Shane the slight advantage as far as surviving.
I'm with you, Damo. I don't like either ownership situation a little bit. JG's got the nicer weather, so that you can put that in the equation. So
that's right.
Maybe he's a little bit happier.
We saw the field. He's got to play on that god-awful field every single week.
Now, I want to talk about the Eagles because we all talk about the defense because of what happened in the Super Bowl. I thought Shane Steichen was a tremendous play caller. I think he's got a feel for it. I don't think that comes around all that often. And, Nick is already on record saying he's not taking it back. So it's going to be Brian Johnson calling the plays. I think assuming it's going to be the same and just as good, I think that's a bad assumption. Your thoughts?
I've liked Brian Johnson John since they hired him. I mean, I thought it was his relationship with Jalen. I think has been a big reason for Jalen's progress over the last 2 years. You know, he has play calling experience. I mean, everybody, I did a story on him after the Eagles hired him, talking to Dan Mullen and people that, you know, his Utah coach going back to when he played. You know, he coached. He was a quarterback's coach with Dak in Mississippi State.
Yeah.
You know, and the only thing they're losing here by promoting Brian to offensive coordinator is the day-to-day closeness he's going to have with Jalen. But I mean, I think Jalen's to the point now he doesn't need that as much. I mean, I just think the trust factor between the two of them is going to be a huge factor going forward. I think Brian's going to be I don't think he's going to be offensive coordinator for very long because
probably not
head coach in
the
next few years.
Yeah.
So they're going to end up renting him the same way they rented Gannon. We shall see.
Yeah.
All right, John and I kind of kicked this around earlier, Damo, and I sound like the wet blanket. I'll apologize for it in advance. Is there any chance that there's a fly in the ointment with the Jalen Hurts negotiation? His agent has never negotiated this level of a contract before. These are new levels for everyone across the National Football League. So she and he are stepping into waters that they've never been before. Sometimes things go awry. It makes too much sense not to believe they're going to get something done because the Eagles are good at dealing with these high-level type quarterback negotiations. Certainly, Jeff Lurie has shown the willingness to keep it at the market value, not trying to save or get cute. Jalen Hurts loves it here in Philadelphia, shown nothing but love for the city and has wanted to stay here. But you never know. Every once in a while, something comes into a negotiation that you don't expect, or someone gets a little over the top in their desires and askings. Is there any chance this thing goes sideways?
I mean, I wouldn't say sideways, Jody, but I think it could be delayed. I don't think it will be, but there's always that possibility. I mean, Nicole Lynn is a very competent agent. You're right. She hasn't negotiated this level of contract before, and she's actually also going to be negotiating a deal for Quinnen Williams, the defensive tackle from the Jets, who's entering his 5th-year option year and wants a new deal. So she's got 2 big, huge contracts to negotiate. You know, and complicating matters is Justin Herbert and Joey Burrow and Lamar Jackson, who also are looking for contracts. So everybody's going to be looking what's going on around them. You know, this isn't being done in a vacuum. That said, you know, I mean, Jalen's been a unique individual in just about every aspect since he came to this team. I think the same is going to hold true here. I don't think he's Lamar. I don't think he's like, I got to have every penny guaranteed. Or I'm not going to sign a deal. I think they'll get one done. I even think he might find a way to help them, so because he wants this team to go back to the Super Bowl. He doesn't want to, you know, strip them of every ounce of cap space so that they can't re-sign some of these free agents. But it could be a while, or it could be real quick. I just have no clue, other than the fact that I don't think what we'll see happen is what's happening in Baltimore, where, you know, I mean, they're to the point now where they've got to franchise him if they want to keep him. I mean, he's not going anywhere this year, but I don't think he's going to, you know, I don't see that relationship deteriorating like it did in Baltimore.
All right. At P Dombo, make sure you follow Paul on Twitter. I like your little sort of bio now. Semi-retirement is not working. So I love that. Paul Domwich, the 33rd team, did a great job for us at JAKIB Sports, doing a stat package. WBCB Merrill Station, you can listen to him there all over the place. And we love having you here, Damo. I'll leave you with this. When it comes to sort of Nick Sirianni and the expectations, when Jody talks about flies in the ointments, that's what I brought up. I wasn't thinking player perspective. I think the expectations are so high, and they just came off a season where they set franchise record for wins and sacks, and all these guys had career seasons. You and I go back to Doug Peterson. I think the worst thing they ever said was the new normal. You know, you raise those expectations, and what do you know? People expect it. I think the fly in the ointment is the expectations. How do you live up to them unless you're Bill Belichick and Tom Brady?
You know, I tweeted a statistic the other day from a story I did in September about Super Bowl winners and runners-up. And runners-up have not fared well historically since you go back to the start of the free agent era. I mean, there have only been 3 teams that have gotten back to the Super Bowl that lost the year before, and only one that won it. That was New England after they lost to the Eagles in 2017. So it's not an easy road. And you know, the challenges are even magnified with this team because of all the free agents they have. I realize the cap's going to be going up, but I mean, they've got the 2 worst things happening right now. The number of free agents that they want to keep on a defense that played well, and a quarterback who now has to be paid. So, you know, Howie Roseman got Executive of the Year this year. If he manages to do all this and take them back to the Super Bowl, they should just put his name on the trophy.
Damo, you don't know how happy we are that both you and your colleague Ray Didinger have failed miserably at retirement. We're thankful that is the case. You're still hopping on with us, doing your great stuff for JAKIBSports.com and 33rd Team as well. Appreciate you jumping in today, bud. We'll get in touch the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a good day.
Thanks,
Paul Domwich. Check him out on JAKIBSports.com. More in-season stuff than out-of-season. 33rd Team. He's there every single week. And, yeah, we'll continue to tap into Damo's expertise. He did say something there at the end that I disagreed with. What the hell was he talking about? Help me out here, John.
The fly in the ointment stuff?
No.
Are you talking about the going back to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, oh, that's it. Thank you. All the way back to 2017. We're not in 2036, are we? It's just 2023. It was only 5 years ago that the Patriots lost the Eagles, but then jumped up and won the Super Bowl the year after. Now, I know they're kind of a outlier in that.
I feel like the Pats, that's where I was going. I feel like we should put the Patriots aside. You know, the Brady Belichick Patriots aside, because, all right, they did it. But for normal teams, I hear what Damo's saying.
Yeah, it was only 5 years ago, so there's no reason why the Eagles can't potentially do that. And, oh, by the way, at least defending myself, I didn't say yesterday the Eagles were going to win the Super Bowl. I just said the Eagles should get back to the Super Bowl. I'm going to leave it up to them. I left it up to them this year, had them picked to win by a touchdown. What the hell happened? Shame on them. But they need to get back to that Super Bowl again next year. Because I think
expectations.
I am a bad guy for setting the bar as high as I am. I'm sorry about that, Eagle fans, but I evaluate this roster, even with all their free agents, with Jalen Hurts in tow. Johnny Mac's telling me, Jody, don't sweat the fly in the ointment. It's not going to happen. They're going to get it done. Sirianni being a good young coach, and the rest of the NFC not being as good as the AFC. I'm not dropping expectations. I may, as the offseason plays itself out, if Howie can't get some of these guys back under contract that are free agents. But right now, I'm still expecting the Eagles to be the team to beat in the NFC. Johnny Mac, Jody Mac coming back. We've still got a couple minutes left. Need to put a bow on the show here on Birds 365.
Go for the beers. Go for the cheers. Go for the hit and the hits. Go for the scene. Go for the screens. Go for the gallery. Go for the win. Go to Ocean.
Philadelphia fans, we're cut from a different cloth. Born into a brotherhood and bonded to our team for life. We believe anything is possible because we've witnessed the impossible. While we may be from different neighborhoods, come Sunday, we are one, and we will be heard. Pondley Hockey, official partner of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer three major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Why do millions of people every year from around the world visit Philly's Rocky statue?
You want to tell me the sky is burgundy with green stripes and yellow polka dots? I'll meet you on that. But you're never going to convince me Rocky is anything other than the pure greatness that it is. Never going to happen.
Join me, Paul Farber, for WHYY's The Statue. We're going on a journey to explore the biography of the Rocky statue. Find us wherever you get your podcasts.
Post-game show with Seth Joyner.
I knew that they had a running game.
Derek Gunn.
He has put in the effort.
Devin Caney.
Had we not won the Super Bowl, what would we be saying?
And Mike Missinelli.
Well, you know who Philly is.
Post-game, now streaming on the 6ABC family of apps.
Mac guys, wrapping up I think, fairly successful show. If it was because of the contributions from our buds, both Mike Gill and Paul Domwich. Thank them for hopping on board. John, it's pretty well known that you had a good, as much of a, you can call it a relationship that a beat writer has with a coach. It can't be that close. Your job is to cover him. His job is to do his job and just give you enough information without really telling tales. So it's kind of a weird relationship, but you and Gannon got along. Know that. You've admitted it right here on Birds 365. You think he's watching us? You think he's a Birds 365 fan? Was he? Has he forgotten the address you got to type in on YouTube to get Birds 365? Now he's out in Arizona. You think he's given up?
Wish.
Has John Gannon given up on you, John McMullen?
No, I don't think he's given up on me. But no, I don't think he's a viewer. I don't. In fact, I know he does not look at a lot of stuff when it comes to.
Then believe it or not, I'm happy today because I'm glad Jonathan Gannon's not listening, because if he didn't know about this, and I'm going to state it here at the end of the show, it would probably bother him. JG, be happy that you're not here in Philadelphia right here, right now, because yesterday a Philadelphia Eagle deity spoke, and he said he would have hated playing for Jonathan.
Oh, yeah, I saw that too. That
would be Brian Dawkins on WIP yesterday, said he would have hated to play for Jonathan Gannon. Oh, that's not going over well in Eagle Nation. That's just more fuel for the fire, Johnny Mac. Gannon.
I know. And by the way, I get it. The type of player Brian Dawkins was. He doesn't want to play quarters coverage and cover 6 and cover 8. I mean, he wants to attack. And that's where I said the game has changed. So I get it from everybody. You know, everybody on Buddy Ryan's Chicago defenses in the 46, they don't want to be in Vic Fangio's defense when he was there. They don't want to be in it. And I get it. But the game has changed, and number two defense. And all the years, I'm going to get people mad. In all the years Brian Dawkins was here, How many times did the Eagles have the number 2 defense or higher? I'll have to look that up.
Yeah. Well, there's something to look forward to. We'll be starting the show with that tomorrow. John McMullen's 22
By the way,
hours
real
of work.
quick, Matt Castle on the 33rd team, because we just had Damo, had his way too early 2023 quarterback rankings. Talk about respect.
Oh, put him out already? Really?
Yeah. Guess who I'll say, where do you think he put Jalen Hurts?
5.
Number 2.
2? Really?
Number 2.
Wow.
2. There's respect. Mahomes 1, obviously. Jalen Hurts 2. Joe Burrow 3.
Ahead of
Josh
Burrow?
Allen 4. Justin Herbert 5. Those are your top 5 from Matt Castle.
Wow. I would have thought Burrow and Allen ahead of because they've done it multiple years
Yeah.
and Jalen's only done
Yeah.
it 1 year. Debatable between Herbert and Jalen. So I said 5. He could have been 4. I'm surprised he's all the way at number 2. Like I said, fly in the ointment, Johnny Mac.
Yeah.
Let's start. What was Banner's top number when he quoted the other day? 52?
52.
Between 47 and 52?
52. They're probably going to bring the graphic up of Matt Castle's quarterback rankings.
Right.
Nicole Lynn is copying and pasting it as I speak. Dak Prescott was number 9. I'm trying to find Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones, yeah, he only wants
45 million.
Excuse me, 45 million per. Where is he?
He is 16. Daniel Jones, right smack dab in the middle.
That's where he deserves to be. That's a good ranking.
Yeah, that's not bad. That's not bad. And
45. If you're getting 45 million for number 16, what are you getting for number 2?
Yeah,
you're getting 55.
Well, I said he's going to ask for 90 gazillion if Daniel Jones is getting 45.
Exactly.
You got to make up a number.
I think we can do that tomorrow. We can make up a number. We'll come up with a number for you. McMullen going to tell you how many times Brian Dawkins' defense ranked in the top 2 in the NFL during his time here in Philadelphia. Johnny Mac will be back with me tomorrow. The Mac and Mac Birds 365 show will return in 2 and 2.
You've been listening to Birds 365, the destination for the passionate Eagles football fan who bleeds green. If it's Eagles football, we're talking about it. Debate inside the locker room and guests that are some of the greatest football minds from around the region. We hope you enjoyed the show. We know we had a blast. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll be back soon. But in the meantime, hook up with us on social media at JAKIB Sports. See you next time on Birds 365.